we'll get started. We have a lot of stuff to cover. So first of all, let me tell you that I will be presenting you with a lot of information, a lot of numbers, and we won't be able to cover it all. There will be like a Q&A session at the end. We definitely won't be able to cover it all, so excuse me if I'm trying to be super, super fast because there's a lot of content coming. So, health insurance, everyone's favorite topic in Germany. What are we talking about today specifically? First of all, I'm just going to introduce our team real quick so you know who we are, what we do. You're going to learn about the differences between public and private health insurance real quick, what it means, what the benefit differences is, and of course what the price differences are. And you're going to learn a little bit more about the history of public health insurance, why it is the way that it is. We get that question asked a lot. I'm not planning to stay here long. What should I do? So we specifically go into that topic as well. So who are we? We call ourselves the Versicherungspeople. A nice German-English word mixture because this is our experience. We're working with you guys that we often get this mix that you have some knowledge about it, but not too much. And things get mixed up a little bit, so we kind of took it upon ourselves to call ourselves the Versicherungspeople. And we are an insurance broker. That means we work with all insurances on the market, and we show you this is the best plan, this is the cheapest plan, this is the best price to benefit ratio. We basically show you all the options that you have. We try to inform you about the pros and cons about it, and then you can make a decision and just choose the plan that fits your needs the best. We have been specialized in people from abroad, so expats, that's why we're here today. Our agency exists for over 25 years. I'm actually the second generation. My father started the business many, many years ago, and I've been doing it for almost 8 years now already. As I said, we are an independent insurance broker, so we don't just work with a single company, but really with all of them on the market. Of course, we have our favorites by now, but essentially, if you tell us you want to move to carrier A, carrier B, we'll try to make it happen. And we try to do everything as simple and digital as possible. I know this is something you are probably not used to from Germany, having something digital. So with us, you don't need to print out anything. You can digitally sign all the documents. Ideally, there will be no paper involved from our side. Sometimes we have to do it depending on the insurance company, but as far as we can do it, we will do it as digitally as possible. Who are we? So we are quite a big team by now. There's actually one person that joined us recently that has not made it onto this table yet. So we have an expert for everything. I do a lot of health insurance. By now, my colleague Mona, that is on the stand, you might have seen her already. She's taking over most of the health insurance part. So I do disability insurance, life insurance, and stuff like that. And we have an expert for each topic. And really an expert that knows exactly the needs and requirements for expats. So this was about us. Now we're getting to the stuff that you actually want to hear about. The health insurance system. Why are there two systems? Why is it public health insurance? Why is it private health insurance? Why is it so complicated? And it is a very, very long story. It's actually a 150-year-old story already, and it all started with this particular gentleman, Bismarck. Chances are you walked across a Bismarck streets, you went into a Bismarck U-Bahn or something like this. He really, really shaped Germany in a lot of ways. And one of the things he did is he started the whole public health insurance. Essentially, his aim was to have healthy workers to produce goods for Germany. This is the reasoning behind it. There was no social aspect involved as such. He really just wanted to have healthy factory workers at the end of the day. And so this is how the system started, and this is why it is still very much focused on employees. They used to call them workers, now it's employees. But this is the reason why it's so employee-centric. And there were additional groups that were added to be eligible for public health insurance throughout the years, but there was also an exclusion for many groups. The people working for the government, doctors, lawyers, and so on, the self-employed, artists that never had access to public health insurance, and in many cases still do not really have access. And that led to private health insurance filling that gap. So you had a bunch of people that couldn't get health insurance, and so of course some very good businessmen thought of ideas to make money with that. And this is why we have public and private health insurance next to each other. I think by now we are actually the only country in the world that has these two systems. And what's the differences? Chances are you guys already made some research and you do have come across many, many tables trying to compare it. It's really, really difficult to really compare public health insurance and private health insurance one-to-one because the basis of the systems is really, really different. There are, of course, a lot of differences in benefits. There's a lot of differences who is eligible for what system and which system fits what person better. And, of course, how much you pay. So we're going to go into a little bit of detail about all of those things. If I look like this talking about it, it is because it's a topic that is really, really complex and interesting, and we can talk hours about it, but I'll try to combine everything into, half-an-hour bits. So this is the table that we usually start. You see it's already quite loaded, so I'm not going to go into detail with all of them, but these are the main differences really in a nutshell, right? So choice and availability of doctors, public health insurance, you go to everyone that does public health insurance. People, if you're on private health insurance, you have access to more doctors, you get appointments quicker. As sad as it sounds, actually a very big German newspaper just published an article saying that the average waiting times for public health insurance people is 2.5 times as long as for privately insured people. You have other benefits when it comes to alternative practitioners, for example. There's no coverage in public, depending on your plan in private. Vision, I see a lot of people wearing glasses. Vision used to be included in public health insurance. They took it out around 10, 15 years ago to save costs. And this is something that will also continue to happen, unfortunately. Medication, in public health insurance, you will always get the generics and have a small copayment, whereas in private health insurance, you usually have access to the name brands if that's something that is important to you. Dental benefits is also vastly different. Public health insurance pays for around 60% of the costs when it comes to tooth replacement, orthodontics, and stuff of that nature. And more especially, they have to give you things that are satisfactorily. This is how it's written into the law. And I don't know if you remember your school years. If you had a grade that was satisfactorily, you kind of barely scraped by. And so in public health insurance, you will get the cheap materials, the cheap fillings, making you have to go again in a couple of years. Very short-sighted system. Whereas in private, you just get better quality materials. Accommodation in hospital, public health insurance gives you a shared room, usually 4 people to a room. In private, it depends on your plan, but many of them have private rooms. And getting money back, this is always a very important point for many people. In public health insurance, if you don't use it, that's it, your money's gone. Whereas in private health insurance, they all have some form of mechanism where if you don't send in invoices for a number of years or for 1 year to start with, they give you back money. So they incentivize you to not use the insurance, which can be a beneficial factor, but you should be careful still to use it if you are ill, of course. What system is best for which person? Again, it's a very, very high generalization that I'm making here. It really, really depends on your individual case, but there are some form of prototypes or stereotypes that we can tell you which system is good for whom. First of all, if you're an employee and you earn below 73,600 euros per year, you have to be in public health insurance. There's no other option. The law is 100% clear here. That's it. Public health insurance through and through. If you're a recipient of social benefits, Bürgergeld, usually public health insurance is for you. There are some exemptions, but it often doesn't make sense to be in private then. And other groups of people under certain circumstances, so spouses that have no source of income, family members, kids, then there are some special groups like soldiers and so on. What is our recommendation in practice? So what do we actually tell the people to do? Usually, everyone that has a pre-existing condition, it makes a lot of sense to be in public because this is one of the main advantages. They do not care about pre-existing conditions. You can have everything that you can potentially think of rolled into one condition. They will cover everything. This is one of the main advantages. Larger families usually have it better in public health insurance from a financial point of view because in private, each family member needs their own plan, whereas in public health insurance, kids are for free as long as they don't make money, which is not often the case. And then for people over the age of 50, it often also makes sense to go on public. Pre-existing conditions are, of course, a role, but also the premiums for private health insurance. If you join when you're older, it simply is more expensive. Then the flip side, private health insurance. So what does the law say? If you're an employee over 73,600 euros as of 2025, you get the option. So the government says, you're making a lot of money, you must be doing something right. We give you the option to choose between public and private. So you get to choose which system fits you the best. Self-employed, if you are coming to Germany already being self-employed, you have no way of joining public health insurance unless you go through something called KSK, but this is a very, very special case. Civil servants get to join private health insurance, and I always say to people, just look at how the German government insures their people, and then you know which system is the better system because they all go into private health insurance. So teachers, the people working in the courts, whatever it is, if you're a civil servant, you get access to private health insurance, regardless of your income, regardless of your status. And that, I think, tells a lot about what system the government prefers for their people. Non-working people without social benefits, it was tough for us to really put a phrase to it. So, for example, Frank, we talked about if you are a retiree moving to Germany, you don't have access to public health insurance. Again, unless there are some special rules applied, but generally speaking, you have to go into private health insurance. And then full-time students over the age of 30, I talked to a few already. Students under the age of 30 get to join public health insurance. Everybody else is stuck with private. So this is the law. What do we actually tell people when they come to us? So everyone that is healthy up to the age of roughly 45, we say go to private. It's usually financially beneficial and from a benefit point of view also significantly better. Employees over the, see, we still have the old number in 2024 was 69,300. They increased it now to the 73. So if you're an employee, you make more than that, and you're under the age of 45, it usually makes sense to go into private. Depending on your family situations, which is the next point, single and married people. If you have a lot of family, private is very expensive, but the benefits are still better. So it comes down to your individual situation. And then, yeah, families with no more than 3 kids. Again, generalization, right? If you have 5 kids, it might still make sense to join private. It just will be expensive. Premium, what do I pay? Or what is the basis of the calculation of the premium? Why is such a big difference between the two systems? The public health insurance has a very, very big social background. So Bismarck made it kind of a social insurance. So this is still the underlying principle that everyone makes the same contribution based on their income. So public health insurance is always based on your income. I'll have a number after that slide showing you some examples. But roughly, we've reached the point where the average is around 20% of the income. If you're an employee, your employer will pay half of it. If you're not an employee, you pay the full 20% yourself. There's minima and maxima. I show you the exact numbers on the next slides. But the social aspect is that if you earn little, you contribute little. If you make a lot, you also have the obligation to pay a lot more money into the society, basically. And what I already talked about was this principle of economic efficiency, as it's called in German. So the law is super specific. It says it needs to be satisfactorily. So whatever the public health insurance is allowed to provide to you, the law says satisfactorily and economical, nothing above. This is how it's written into the law, and this is why, I don't know if you had the experience maybe with public, there was maybe a treatment that isn't that normal. You have to go to your public health insurance and say, I want to be covered here, please. And they will actually look at your individual case, put it to this guideline. Is it economical? Does it make sense? And might reject the payment for this treatment. Private health insurance, on the other hand, they have something called an equivalence principle. So they say the higher the risk, the more money you have to pay. Higher risk means simply being older. There's a higher risk of you having diseases, of you needing treatment. If you are young and healthy, you get a very, very good plan for very little money. And one thing that I want to take already here, your premium doesn't change with your age. It's based on a few other factors if your premium increases, but if you join private health insurance young, you will end up paying significantly less money than someone that is joining at an older age over the years. So there is a benefit to join earlier. And you have freedom of contract, meaning that you can choose the plan that fits your needs. If you want to have a basic plan, you have a basic plan. If you want to spend a lot of money and get a super plan and have a private room and head physician and whatever it is that's out there, you can do that too. You're totally free and going into a contract with this insurance company. General breakdown of costs. So now we're going to the numbers. Let's start with public health insurance. We have 3 parts of cost structure in private health insurance. 2 of them are identical for all carriers. We have the general health insurance cost, which is 14.6%, and we have nursing care, which is also a fixed percentage. not that fixed anymore because now it's based on the number of kids that you have. The more kids you have, the less you pay, because the argument is that if you have kids, you have someone that will take care of you when you're in need of nursing care. So ideally, have a good relationship with your kids because they ought to take care of you. On top of that, there's a carrier-specific add-on that they're allowed to take. So we have nearly 100 different public health insurance companies, and each company is allowed to kind of choose this individual extra surcharge. By now, we have an average of 2.5% for this extra, some of them even more. So we have some companies that take 3.8 to 4%. So sometimes it can really make a difference changing carriers, having the same benefits, but simply paying less money. So all in all, we've reached around 19.3 up to 21.1% of the income, which is really, really a lot of money for many people, especially if you're not an employee. Paying 21% of your income for health insurance is just a lot of money. And the table you see below is just if you make this amount of money, right? So if your income is 3,000 euros, depending on the carrier, you will end up paying somewhere between 550 euros to 600 euros per month for your health insurance. Regardless if you're young, if you're old, if you're healthy, if you're ill, everyone pays the same based on the income. Private health insurance, there's three things that mainly determine how much you have to pay. The age of entry, we already talked about, right? The younger you are, the less you have to pay. Your desired scope of coverage, if you want to have a basic plan versus a premium plan, and if you have pre-existing conditions that might increase the premium. So there's something called a risk surcharge. If you have a chronic illness, they know you need medication, they know you need treatments, they will charge you more money than a healthy person just for getting all the treatments. By the way, I'm pretty sure they will send you the slides. If you registered and you put your email down, they will send you the slides as well, but you're very welcome to take pictures, of course, too. And so we try to break it down for private health insurance. Not so easy because there's so many variables, but you see the age groups over there. I don't even know if I have a laser pointer here. Yes, I do. Perfect. So if you're 30 years old and you want to have a basic plan, you'll end up paying somewhere between 260 to 350. If you want to have a premium plan, somewhere between 400 and 650. And this is regardless of your income. So if you're a millionaire, you pay the same. If you are a graphic designer making 20,000 euros a year, you also pay the same. It's not based on you and your income. It's really based on you as age and health. Quick swipe to public health insurance again. You know, TK is probably the one that most of you know. Barmer, they actually have their little booth right across the hall. AOK is probably a name for many. We have more than 90 different carriers still. Many, many choices. 95% of what they do is the same. As strange as it sounds, they're all more or less the same because it's all written into law what they're allowed to cover and what not. The other 5% is stuff like alternative practitioners. Some give you a little bit of money for that. Some cover a little bit for teeth cleaning. Some have a better website than others. But the general basic treatments, what they cover, is all the same because it's written into law what they're allowed to do and what not. And why do we have so many? Again, we have to go back a little bit into the past. We actually used to have, I don't know the exact number, I think more than 1,200 back in 1993, not that long ago. Reason being because they used to be only allowed to act regionally. So you had in Berlin, 10 different ones. One was for Steglitz, the other one was for Kreuzberg, so they were only allowed to act regionally. Then you had big companies that were allowed to have their own public health insurance. So all the BKK that you might be a part of or you might have heard, it's Betriebskrankenkasse. That used to be from Siemens, from Airbus, from all the big companies. They used to have their own public health insurances that only were allowed to serve their people. And then in 1993, they opened the market. Everyone is allowed to operate anywhere now. And then we had a big consolidation period. You see the graph going down quite rapidly. And now we've reached this point where we still have 95 public health insurance companies. If you ask me, it doesn't make sense at all because you have 95 CEOs, you have 95 marketings, you have 95 payrolls. And because 95% of what they do is identical, it doesn't really make sense anymore. But Germany, we love traditions. We love to do things that we've already done many, many times. So it will not significantly change. The number will go down over the years. I think we'll end up with having still 40, 50 companies all in all. But the system itself, I don't really see it changing anytime soon. yeah, close to 100 carriers. So what are the differences? I already talked about it. There are really not that many differences between those companies. What is written, what they are allowed to cover is written into law. So really there's a commission that is talking to doctors, to the public health insurances, and they decide we cover this, we don't cover that. This is really how it's decided. It's not the public health insurance company itself. It's all law and politicians deciding what is covered. 95% of the benefits are the same, and the other 5% are really, really small stuff. It might be relevant to you as an individual to go to company A over company B because you do want to do acupuncture and they give you 200 euros for it per year. But really the main benefits are all the same, and most people just decide by price. So this extra surcharge that they're allowed to take, most people just go for the cheapest one, and in most cases it makes sense. What can you do if you're in public health insurance? You can join private health insurance, but you want to have better health insurance. We have something called supplementary health insurances. So you can top up your public health insurance in a number of ways. The most common one is dental. Most of you probably heard about it before. So I already said that public health insurance only covers around 60% of the costs. So you can get an add-on covering 80, 90, or 100% of the costs, covering better materials, covering teeth cleaning, whatever it is that a dentist can do to you, you can get coverage for that. The second one is better treatment in the hospital. So you can get that private room even though you're in public. You can get the head physician. And most importantly, I think in my eyes, is you can actually get the free choice of hospital. In public health insurance, if you have a planned treatment, you need to go to the hospital that's closest to you. Doesn't matter if it's a clinic that does what you want to do well, you just have to go to that one, or you have to do an Antrag, go to another one. It's possible, but administration work. With its add-ons and as a privately insured person, you usually just can't choose your hospital to begin with. So especially if you have something highly specialized, of course you want to go to the people that do it the best. And then there's a variety of smaller add-ons like glasses, you can get coverage for that, alternative practitioners, more preventative measures. It's a little bit of everything depending on what you need. We're in Germany, we can get insurance for everything that you want. If you have money, you can get everything insured. Bad question. I'm not planning to stay long term. I don't know how many of you this actually matters right now, if all of you are trying to stay here long term. In almost all cases, it usually makes sense to go to private because it is significantly cheaper and it will give you significantly better coverage. Ultimately, though, you heard me say that a couple of times already, and if you ever talk to me about insurances, you will hear it from me many, many times. It really depends on your individual situation. If you're young and wealthy, but you have pre-existing conditions, private health insurance simply might not be possible. If you're older and healthy, private still might make sense over public. So really, we look at everyone individually. We try to get the best solution for you as an individual and not just tell you, yeah, do this, do that, but really, it depends on what you are looking for. Some of the factors that you need to think about if you yourself want to make the decision is your professional status, so employee versus non-employee, whether you actually have the choice, right? Previous insurance, whether you're already coming out of a public health insurance system or you're just coming to Germany from a country that doesn't have public health insurance, your health status, whether you're healthy or not, the age, of course, and then the income level. So all those things we try to take into consideration to give you a recommendation based on what you're looking for. Family status, of course, if you have kids or not, if you have a spouse that you need to co-insure or not, if your spouse has income or not. So there's really, really many factors to consider. So I talked a lot. Again, the presentation should be sent to you after this. These are my contacts that are on the presentation. We have a booth somewhere left here as well, so you guys are welcome to contact me and Mona there as well.